Young Legal Aid Lawyers has recently published results of a survey which indicates that paralegals are increasingly underpaid, undersupervised and overworked. In addition, they are facing insurmountable limitations on their career progression. This problem appears to be particularly endemic within the legal aid sector, most probably because of the financial pressures on firms that do legal aid. What measures do the panel suggest to, on the one hand, prevent the exploitation of paralegals, and on the other, avoid a potential adverse effect on the quality of advice given?
Do you exploit paralegals?
I might come back to something, because I think this ties in with this question that the Minister said a few moments ago, which was that his aspiration is he wants to see high-quality practitioners. Well, my question to that is, where are they going to come from? Because I have unquestionably seen a reduction in trainees applying for training contracts, and those that do, I can't afford to employ because of all the additional costs. Now, we know the Legal Services Commission has given training grants, and I'm one of those recipients, and I'm most grateful to that. But I need more than one grant to enable me to offer more places. So far as paralegals are concerned, I have to say that when we heard the previous Minister, and I really do say it is a welcome to have Lord Hunt here rather than Vera Baird. Was recently on Sunday ingratiated herself with the royal family by saying she's going to get them to join the human race. It's not just legal aid lawyers. What I would like to see is more training grants, and so far as paralegals are concerned, my grave concern is, as Vera Beer told all of us over a year ago, you'll simply have to restructure. By that she meant redundancies, and she was very, very clear that we should be downgrading the level of workers to do the work. Now, for those of us, and I know those of us who are my age in this room, many of you I know, have always worked efficiently and had an efficient practice, and we have always delegated appropriate tasks to appropriate level of workers. The sad reality is that in the climate that we're in, and in the fees that we can afford to pay, our clients, and yes, Mr. Reagan, I am referring to clients because they are at the heart of my commitment, our clients are going to be receiving advice from people who are underqualified, undersupervised, and most importantly, from my point of view, underpaid.
I think there's a general consensus that there is a problem here. Des, how are you addressing it in the Law Society?
The reason why we have a problem is that if you look at why you undertake legal aid work, it is difficult to see any economic justification for doing so. And whilst I welcome the settlement that we recently had, which offers some practitioners an important and welcome but limited increase, that in a few months will be dissipated by the effects of inflation. Fundamentally, the economic justification, and I use that expression to put to one side issues of conviction as to why people choose to do this work and not do work for hedge funds or banks. The economic justification for legal aid is for legal aid funded work is in jeopardy. That is why people cannot choose sensibly to appoint trainees. It may be a justification for some of the worrying practices that we see meted out to paralegals by our profession. But there is this underlying issue here that at the moment the rate of pay being offered imperils, if you look at it simply from paying the bills, paying your staff, paying the rent. The present system imperils one's ability to do that, and we have to find a fundamental answer to that. And it's hard to see how that fundamental answer cannot include more money. Because if we don't do that, then what I think we face the risk of, and I think your reference to legal aid deserts is very, very troubling and very accurate, is that poor services will be made available to poor people. And that, I think, raises a whole series of implications that are very, very unpleasant.
Prem, what makes you go on?
I think the first thing is actually the interest and the satisfaction you get out of working incredibly hard for your clients, being client-driven, not financially driven, but the concern that young legal aid lawyers put forward in their proposals, with constructive proposals put forward, is that there is a huge amount of exploitation. At the end of the day, all the legal aid changes, the largest batch of people who are affected are right at the bottom of the paralegals. And everything that they've talked about in terms of discrimination, that is so apparent in terms of paralegals, and why basic proposals that we've suggested, such as reductions in time for training contracts, incentives such as further sponsorship or scholarship schemes, why nobody has listened or addressed those matters.
Do you have a concern about paralegals and how people are coming into the business?
Well, obviously I've got a concern, and I read the report with some anxiety. I have responded to the young legal aid lawyers on a number of points. First of all, we're increasing the amount of money that we put into training grants, and that's as of this year. And secondly, I think we can do more in terms of ongoing support, mentoring and work experience, working to ensure that roles and responsibilities and supervision are appropriate for paralegals. But yes, we want to spend more money on training because we want high quality lawyers for the future.
Carolyn, we were grateful for your letter, and one thing that you mentioned in it was that there are already monitoring systems in place to control what happens to paralegals and to control supervision, etc. But what our survey showed was that right now people are unsupervised, they are being exploited, and clients are suffering as a result. They're not getting the advice they need, and things in dangerous situations, things are being missed. So what is going to happen about the training for paralegals, about their supervision, about their career progression? Because under the new proposals, the number of paralegals is going to increase, and there is nothing there to control their training and to control their supervision, to control their aspirations and whether they even stay here or who comes into that kind of role.
Well, I suppose the question is going forward, how we make sure that those things are in the training contracts that we have both with the firms and also with the individuals. And it's about, ongoing support and mentoring, and not just allocating the training grant and leaving things to happen. So I think we need to have a further discussion about how best to do that without kind of breathing down people's necks, and that's the balance. We do want to spend more money on it, and we are having these roundtable discussions with your organisation, as you know.
Des?
Well, I welcome the fact that we have training grants, and I know that there's an increase in funding going into training grants, and I have some understanding of how difficult Caroline's budget is, and therefore how difficult that move makes. But what worries me is that there's a sense that the training grants, welcome though they are a palliative. They're a sticking plaster.
Well, I think it's a very interesting discussion. Part of the answer, of course, about paralegals and the work that you've done must lie with the profession itself and the firms and the organisations who employ them, and the regulatory bodies, because that is their responsibility. Equally, in terms of the contractual relationship that the LSC has with providers, they have to ensure that there are the appropriate quality checks, which obviously would play back into situations where paralegals are not being employed appropriately or not being supervised. So, in theory at least, collectively, we ought to be able to sort